LSU corner Greedy Williams, he's the 5th ranked player on Mel's latest big board. He led the SEC this year with 13 pass breakups. He will sit out LSU playing in the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl. Another player who won't be in a bowl game, Ed Oliver. He will skip Houston's appearance in the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. He was once considered the potential #1 pick in the draft. We've seen a lot of things happen with him, including when the coach took his jacket off on the sideline this year. He won't play in the bowl game. And then Michigan's Rashan will sit out the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. He is the 9th ranked prospect on the board right now after a 10.5 sack season during his 3 years in Ann Arbor. And not seen there, and because it's a different circumstance, of course, is Nick Bosa, who was considered to be the #1 player in this draft, made the decision not to come back and play this year at a time when Ohio State may very well have been playing for the national championship this year. So the notion that they're sitting out bowl games but they would never sit out the playoff, I think that might be around the corner as well. Anyone disagree?
I hope so. I hope that comes at some point. I wouldn't be opposed to a player having a good freshman and sophomore year and just sitting out the whole season. I think you have to do what's in your best interest. We look at the Jalen Smith example, the linebacker for Dallas right now. That example was, I think, very informative about this situation. He would have been a top 5 pick. He got hurt in a bowl game, and he lost probably about $20 million of guaranteed money that he will never get back. The same thing could be said about Jake Butt. Lost money because he got injured in the bowl game. You look at guys like Fournette and McCaffrey, they skipped their bowl games and they played. I would love for guys, if a quarterback has 2 good seasons, I'm going to go and work on my game elsewhere.
Where does that end, though? See, the problem I have, it's not a problem. I understand and I agree with you intellectually. The issue that we have here is that's an existential threat to the sport, right? Because now all of a sudden the guy's had 1.5 good seasons, and after week 6, he says, you know what? If I don't ever play another snap right now, I'm the 5th pick in this draft. I don't know how this system continues.
You know, we saw this a couple of years ago with Jadeveon Clowney. He just decided, you know what? I'm airmailing the rest of the season in. Steve Spurrier told me later that he tried to discipline him, and then he couldn't even discipline him, but he just wanted him for the bowl game to help Jadeveon. That was the opening of Pandora's box, and you can't close it. It's over. You're going to see more of this. We haven't even seen the full list yet for the bowl games, and fans can scream and holler, but do you really blame Greedy Williams or any of these players? I'm going to play UCF in my final game?
At the end of the day, all of this is big business. There's so much money involved. Like, as a player, why should I go out there and play in a meaningless bowl game to potentially, you know, put in jeopardy millions of dollars that I have at stake? No.
These are television events.
So we just saw the video of that game with Ed Oliver and Major Applewhite on the Houston sideline. I was a sideline reporter for that game, so the whole jacket gate thing was just, I actually did take one of the jackets. They weren't even that great. But anyway, that was a whole situation that people criticized both sides. And to Major Applewhite's credit, he was just trying to discipline the player and hold him to the same standards as everybody else. But this does become, it's a total snowball. And it is a Pandora's box. The one thing that I wanted to point out, though, about Ed Oliver before that game, I was talking to him about sitting out and his decision, and we're talking about life-changing money for this young man and his family. And he said, even with that, he was torn. He felt like a bad teammate. So I think no one ever looks at it from what the players may actually be feeling. It's not as easy as it looks to be, you know, a Bosa or one of these guys and say, hey, I'm done, because you've got to still, you know, ride with your team. You got to still be in the locker room. I get it, the money and all that, but you are getting those other guys looking at you on the sideline, and they're saying, well, wait a second, we'd be a lot better if you were out here on the field.
Football players want to play football, and we have all been conditioned to think of it as a brotherhood and letting guys down. So it's a tough thing for those guys to have to do that, and I think it hurts them tremendously. However, it's the smart thing to do, and I would encourage, if there was my son, if it were me, I know Damien was a much better college player than I was, but I was not a first-round pick. If I were, I would have set out.
And the other side of it is that we have noticed that the NFL teams don't even blink an eye. It has not impacted the draft status of any of these players.
It should improve.
They don't hold it against.
It should improve it. It is less wear and tear on their body, and it shows that they're practical, good decision makers.
Okay, that's one thing that I think annoyed Major Applewhite so much in that particular Houston game. There was video of Ed Oliver jumping around and running routes out there pregame. That's because there were NFL scouts on the sideline. He wanted to show them, hey, I'm good, y'all. Like, I'm not playing in the game, but I'm okay. Like, don't worry about my health.
Well, listen, it's about time. I mean, there's such hypocrisy in college sports from the top down, and I think it's beautiful that players are finally getting a little juice and saying, you know what, we're the reason for these games.